Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Brent. Last night I made this video, but for some reason I've done it using XSplit, but I didn't have a game streaming playing with it, and it messed the audio up. So I think it was why I wasn't playing a game or whatever. So after I didn't realize the sound cut out and messed up until after I done shot the video, and I was double checking everything before I uploaded it. And after I done what talked for about an hour, it realized the audio didn't work, so I just deleted it, scrapped it. So I figured I'd just redo it. Um, I'm going to do a list of the top 10 of who I think are the top 10 greatest professional wrestlers of all time, in my opinion. And I have them ranked 1 through 10. I'm not going to go actually doing backwards 10 to 1, with 1 being the best, the greatest. Now, some of these are not my personal favorite wrestlers, but I mean, that's okay. It's who I think are the greatest wrestlers of all time. Um, There's going to be a lot of names you could add to the list. It was actually very hard to actually make a whole list. Uh, so I'll do a couple honorable mentions that didn't make the list, and I'll explain why. Uh, so yes, so here we go. Okay, and I'll be doing the AEW Dynamite of tonight's show too on NXT after I watch NXT. So that'll be up in the next couple of days. So all right, here we go. So my list for the top 10 uh, greatest professional wrestlers of all time. Alright, here we go. Number 10, my first pick. Number 10, um, have to say Mil Mascaras. Mil Mascaras. Luchador wrestler, Mexican wrestler. Aside, fun fact, um, his grandson or nephew, I believe it's his grandson, is Alberto El Patron, aka Alberto Del Rio from WWE, who was a very good wrestler at one time. Uh, so yeah, I thought it was cool. Uh, but yes, Mil Mascaras is a famous Mexican wrestler, um, and he was interesting. I've heard stories about him recently. Every time I just hear about him, he's interesting. Seen some of his matches, and I just love the way he wrestles and the way he wrestled, the way he moved. Um, he just looked good. Sold. I mean, he was just a really good wrestler. Plus, they said at the time he was doing all that stuff, wasn't nobody else doing the stuff he was doing. So very fast. Uh, they said he lived his character, lived his gimmick, was always in character here, like never took his mask off. Jim Cornette said on one of his podcasts recently that he actually was the only time he saw Mil Mascaras with his mask off. He had it off, take it off when he was in the airport. We happened to see him, and there's been a lot of stories and just talk over the years. That he's maybe not a very nice person, that he was a jerk. Jim Cornette also said in that podcast when he's talking about Memphis Scares that a lot of the stories you heard about him are true. They're all true. He pretty much just wanted to go have his match, do whatever he wanted to do, make himself look good. He didn't really put anybody else over. Uh, he just wasn't very cooperative. It was pretty much his way or nothing at all. So yes, but yes, he's a legendary wrestler, and I'll read you some of his accomplishments to back that up. Mil Mascaras is regarded as one of the greatest wrestlers of the Lucha Libre tradition in Mexico. He has been described as the first international superstar of Lucha Libre. Mascaras is considered one of the most influential wrestlers of all time for enhancing and popularizing the Lucha Libre style around the world, both in the ring and as a star. He did 20 films too, 20 movies as well. Um, he was inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2010 and the WWE Hall of Fame in 2012. He is a member of one of Mexico's most prominent wrestling families. Um, Mascaras worked as All Japan Pro Wrestling at AJPW in the 70s. Um, he was the world champion in a place called International Wrestling Association. IWA in New York City, they was short lived. Uh, he wrestled in WWF, um, wrestled at Madison Square Garden several times, wrestled in WCW. Um, in 1991, when he was 49 years old, Masquerade won his first title, the WWA Mexico World Heavyweight Championship. Uh, his first time in America on pay-per-view was 1997 for WWF in the Royal Rumble. Um, yes. So, yes, that's Mil Masquerade style. Number 10, one of the best luchadors of all time. So, there it is, number 10. All right. Now, at number 9, I'm going to have to go for another luchador. Probably my favorite luchador of all time, and I probably have to say he's probably the best of all time, best I've ever seen as far as the luchadors go, and that's Rey Mysterio. Um, I first saw Rey Mysterio when he was in WCW. Um, um, I was more of a WWF fan because I started watching wrestling right before the Attitude Era started, and yeah, I was really into the Attitude Era, and if I'm not mistaken, Raw's War would start at like 9 o'clock at night on TNN or USA or Spike, whatever it was called back then. Uh, we start at 9, so WCW Monday Nitro would be on at 8. So I would always watch the first hour of Nitro at 8 o'clock and wait for WWF to come on. I was so much more into WWF and was such a big fan. I actually just thought it was better than Nitro. I thought how was better and the wrestling was better. Um, so I was just more on WWF. So once I turned it on WWF, I like never turned the channel to WCW. I just it stayed on WWF. That was just how it was. Uh, but always it seemed like in that first hour, um, I would always see Rey Mysterio wrestle, Juventud Guerrera, Ultimo Dragon, Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho, Psychosis, and I just liked all those guys. And Rey Mysterio, always loved the way he worked, fast. He put on good matches, very athletic, works hard, uh, small but can take a beating. He can sell, he can work, he can move, he can cut a promo, tough, everything. I mean, he's full package. I mean, he's small but can do everything. Uh, Even though he's really, really old now, he's been around for years. I believe he's like 45 now. He's been wrestling pretty much my whole life, pretty much ever since I've been into wrestling. Since I was about 8 or 9 years old, since I first started watching it, he's just always wrestling, always done at a high level. And actually, right now, I think he's a free agent. I hope AEW would sign him. He's still got a lot left to be in the tank, and I'd love to see him be able to do more with AEW. He doesn't let him do much in WWE now, but uh, yes, he's pretty much wrestled everywhere. WCW, WWE. Um, he went to Lucha Underground for a little bit, and I really loved him there. When he was there, he had a feud with Matanza Cueto, who is Jeff Cobb, and they had a Matanza Cueto was like unbeatable for a long time. And Rey Mysterio was like the first person to really give him a challenge, and they did an angle. It was more like a TV series that showed the Lucha Underground, and they fought like up in like the stadium steps. And they fought like up in the arena, and Mysterio attacked him, and remember he drop kicked him, and Mil Mascaras, Matanza Cueto fell like off of the like out of the arena pretty much and fell like 2 or 3 stories down. Uh, he like fell through a whole like shed or a building or something they had on the side, and he went through it and Yeah, it was awesome. Uh, yeah, but I'll read you off some of Rey Mysterio's accomplishments to back up my opinion about him being one of the greatest of all time. Um, Mysterio helped popularize High Blue Lucha Libre, um, and he helped start the emergence of the cruiserweight wrestling in the United States for WCW when they had the cruiserweight title. Uh, he won the WCW Cruiserweight Championship and the WCW World Tag Team Championship. Uh, in WWE, he's a three-time world champion. Held the WWE Championship once and the World Heavyweight Championship twice. Two-time Intercontinental Champion, two-time United States Champion, four-time Tag Team Champion, and a three-time Cruiserweight Champion for WWE. He is also the winner of the 2006 Royal Rumble and is the 21st Triple Crown and 21st Grand Slam winner in WWE history. He has headlined several WWE pay-per-view events. According to ESPN, Mysterio is widely regarded as the greatest cruiserweight in pro wrestling history. Um, so that's Mysterio. All around great wrestler, great talent. I just always loved Mysterio and still do. One of the greatest ever. My opinion, probably the greatest luchador of all time. Yep. So that's Mysterio. Okay. And number 9. All right. Now for number 8, it's going to be a controversial selection. This guy's still wrestling and doing very well. He's actually wrestling for AEW and is one of the faces of the company. Uh, that is being Le Champion, Chris Jericho. Uh, I becoming, Judas in my mind. That's his theme song now for AEW. Uh, his nickname now is the Le Champion. Uh, he was just like Rey Mysterio. He was in WCW. When I saw him when I first got into wrestling, about that 8 o'clock prime slot on Nitro, Chris Jericho just always seemed to be in a match, and I just always able to see and watch him wrestle, and I just fell in love with him and like his as a wrestler, the way his character was, his promos, his in-ring ability. Um, he could sell. He could make other wrestlers look good. Uh, help people get over. Cut good promos. I mean, he could do top up stuff he needed to. Athletic. Could do submissions. Just a great wrestler, great worker, and I just always loved Chris Jericho. And over the years, seemed like the older he got, really, the better he got. It was funny. One of his most famous times in WCW, he did this promo where he was in the ring, and it was the famous promo now for WCW. He and Jericho, he stood in the middle of the ring and had a huge like piece of paper, like a list, and he actually named off like he come like it was over like 1,000 submission holds, and he actually started naming submission holds. And like even through the commercial, when the commercial, he's still doing submission holds. So when it come out the commercial, he was still naming them, and he wouldn't stop till he named every submission hold. I just thought that was funny. Uh, yeah, but if you've ever watched his documentary about his career, he's wrestled everywhere: Japan, ECW, WCW, um, Spain, UK, Canada, Japan. He's actually wrestled in Japan recently. I mean, you name it, any place for a wrestling ring. I mean, he's pretty much wrestled there. It's amazing once you actually go read that up and find all that out. That he's wrestled all the different places, and he's been good everywhere he's been. When he first made the jump over, when WCW folded, he uh, went to WWF, and probably about I remember the countdown had like a countdown clock, music hit with the break the walls down, big reveal. And I want to say he come out and cut a promo on The Rock, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, but he had several great matches in WWF. Um, They even did it was really a stupid storyline in WWF, and when he fought in his last run in WWF, uh, where he had a list, and people that would make him mad, he would like take out a piece of paper and take a pen and write down and said, "You just made the list." I mean, he even got that over. I mean, amazing. Did something so stupid they come up with, and he actually made it something out of it really funny. Um, yeah, but in WWF, Jericho is a six-time world champion. He won the undisputed WWF Championship once, the WCW World Championship twice, the World Heavyweight Championship three times. Uh, he also had the WWE Intercontinental Championship record nine times, with the ninth Triple Crown winner, as well as the fourth Grand Slam champion in history. 2017, he became the first person to hold every title in the original format. In addition, he was also the 2008 Superstar of the Year Slammy Award winner, along with Big Show and Jerry Show. He won the 2009 Tag Team of the Year Slammy Award, making him the only winner above Superstar and Tag Team of the Year. Um, uh, One of his most famous matches in WWF, where he became the double champion, undisputed double champion, he beat Stone Cold and The Rock, and I forget who else in the same night, all in the same night, to get both titles at the same time. One of his most famous matches. Um, After he left WWE, he even went back to New Japan and it became a one-time IWGP Intercontinental Champion, becoming the first man to have held both the WWE and Intercontinental IWGP Intercontinental Championship. I think he beat Naito for that title, if I'm not mistaken, Tetsuya Naito. And also had matches with Tanahashi in Japan, like last year, year before last. Great matches there, even as old as he is. Uh, he joined AEW when they first started, and he was actually their first ever champion, the AEW World Championship. Yep, he was the first person to win that. So all total between AEW, ECW, WCW, WWE, New Japan, and AEW, Jericho has held 36 championships, including 7 world championships and 10 intercontinental championships. And it's just amazing. And also he has a band which is big. I saw his band because his band's good too. So not only is he like a world famous wrestler, he's also a musician, actor. He does comedy. I mean, he can just do it all. He commentates now for AEW, and he does a real good job commentating when he does. I mean, he does nothing he can't do. Similarly, I mean, everything he does like turns to gold. It's amazing. Uh, I just love Jericho. So yes, one of my favorites of all time, and I think one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Uh, at number 8 on my list. So yeah, that's Chris Jericho. And next is going to be another controversial pick. Um, I'd say number 7, Triple H, the game. Um, when he originally got started in the 90s. Also, right now, he's the CEO of WWE, married to the boss's daughter, Stephanie McMahon. I've always liked her. I've always been a big Triple H fan as well. Always loved Triple H. When he first got started in wrestling, his first character in WWF was back before WWE. He was went by Hurst Helmsley from Greenwich, Connecticut. And he was like this real stuck up, preppy, cocky, arrogant, snotty person, like a douchebag person, like really like rich and stuck up acting, like his brother and everybody else, and just kind of turned his nose up at everything. And I even liked it when he done that gimmick. I found out about it. By the time I got to watch him, he had already left that. And he eventually he started Shawn Michaels in China was doing DX, and Triple H joined them as DX, and it was Triple H Shawn Michaels in China as DX. Uh, and boy, put them two together, all three together, they were just great on screen and great promos. And Triple H, they would terrorize Michael Cole and terrorize people in interviews, like crack on them and give them wedges and stuff and swirlies and just make a lot of cool crew jokes. It was really funny. Um, Shawn Michaels had hurt his back and was on his way out, and he was on real bad on drugs too. And Shawn Michaels retired after his match with Stone Cold at WrestleMania 14. That's when Stone Cold bid for the title, and Tyson was the special guest enforcer and all that. After Shawn Michaels left, Triple H took Shawn Michaels' spot as the leader of DX. It was Triple H and China, and they actually went out and got a tag team by the name of New Age Outlaws in WWF, and they joined DX, and they're probably my all-time favorite tag team in uh, history of tag teams in wrestling. I love the New Age Outlaws, love their catchphrase, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, great together, did great matches. They was great in DX. Then they brought in X-Pac, six, and he was six in WCW and WWF, uh, six in the 1-2-3 Kid, and they changed his name to X-Pac in WWF, and he joined DX along with Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, Triple H, and China, and all of them together. They just had classic rivalries with people, classic matches, skits, promos. Uh, they did a thing where they invaded WCW and drove it on a tank. It was just classic. Doing one of the Monday nights and actually went up to the WCW doors, the buildings, doing one of the nitros and beat on the gate, claiming they was trying to get in. If they could have gotten it, I believe they would have and kept it going. It was just hilarious. Uh, so Triple H's career really took off when he joined DX and became the leader of DX. He just had a lot of high profile matches and just got really good and got over. Uh, After they pretty much ended DX, he started his career on his own. Not as a manager, he come up with a new character, new gimmick. He was the game Triple H. I am the game, and his career just really took off, and he got even more better and popular and over, in my opinion. Just had a lot of high profile feuds with Undertaker and uh, John Cena, etc. I mean, he was just one of the top stars of the company. He just really took off promo wise and everything. I mean, it was just awesome. Uh, he actually tore his quad one time in a match, and it was one of his most going to be known was one of his famous matches, and still finished the match. And he came back in I think like 9 months or 12 months, something like that, and got like a huge pop, huge ovation. It was just awesome when he came back. Uh, One of the loudest fan reactions I've heard. So yeah, he's just a great wrestler, good promo, good worker. His matches is always good, and I've always liked him. Always been a fan, and very smart, knows wrestling. Um, yeah, I've just been a big Triple H fan, and he's number 7 on my list of all time, and here's some of his accomplishments. Um, Triple H is a 5-time Intercontinental Champion, a 3-time World Tag Team Champion, 2 World Tag Team Championship reigns, and 1 Unified WWE Tag Team Championship reign, a 2-time European Champion, a 14-time World Champion, making him the company's 7th Triple Crown winner, champion, and 2nd Grand Slam champion. He is also a 2-time Royal Rumble match winner. He won the King of the Ring tournament. Um, Yep, he's also the main head honcho, the runner behind what became NXT. Uh, he was the first one to really make NXT popular when it started on network. He really got it going. Yep. Uh, 2019, he was inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame as part of the DX stable. Of course, his run with DX was legendary. Yeah, so one of my favorites of all time. Number 7 to be exact on my list, Triple H. All right. So now at number 6, we have The Undertaker, the Dead Man. Um, uh, so Undertaker's, in my opinion, one of the best wrestlers of all time. He may have just retired recently. Um, for those that don't know, uh, he did a documentary on the first time for the first time recently. The last round on WWE Network is great. It's the first time he's really talked about outside stuff as far as his character, and actually went out and did stuff outside WWE. Talked about his life outside of WWE, and it was just really good, really, really cool, really interesting. He's pretty much best kept the Undertaker character going his whole 30 some years or so in the business. Uh, I just always liked his matches, loved his in ring work, uh, his character, his promos, his gimmicks. He's also a lot like Mick Foley in the fact that he had several different characters over the years, and he really evolved and changed his character and gimmick over the years to adapt. And I just always liked him. Uh, Strange story. When I first got into wrestling, I was about 8 or 9 years old. Uh, my uncle had wanted me to go with him to a pay per view. Me, him, and all my cousins. And didn't know a thing about pro wrestling. I was going to be with them, and I had my ticket. I was like, sure, I'll go check it out. Why not? He said, well, before you go, I taped. He said, back in the days when we still had VHS, he would tape stuff. He recorded and taped episode of Raw for me. He's like, I'll send you the tape, and I want you to watch it, and this will help give you an idea of what you're going to see at the pay per view. So I got it and watched the tape, and I fell in love with wrestling instantly. I just loved it, loved everything about it. Uh, Ever since then, was a huge wrestling fan. I had to watch all of wrestling and get caught up on that year's storylines and get ready for the pay per view. And I learned all the wrestlers and the moves and everything, got all up on it. And, watched old wrestling videos, old pay per views, so I would know all the people. And funny thing is, when I first put in the tape, the very first thing I remember seeing as a kid was Undertaker was in a graveyard, and he was talking to about Kane, the storyline with Kane. This boy, Kane had first come in as his brother. They was doing the first ever Inferno match in WWF, the first ever Inferno wrestling match in history. It's going to be this pay-per-view was in 1997 at Unforgiven, Greensboro, North Carolina. So yeah, I was at the first Inferno match ever, and I remember loving it as a kid and just loved it being there. And God, it was so hot, and you could really feel the smoke. And every time Undertaker would do that old school elbow drop off top rope where he would grab a guy and jam down on his elbow, and he did this one spot on Kane where he ran and did like the suicide dive plunge or whatever they call it, suicida. He jumped all the way into the ring, outside the ring, on the Kane over the top rope. And when he did it, flames shot up with the pyro. Flames shot up from the side of the ring. It was just so cool. It was unforgettable, unbelievable. Uh, yeah, so I was an Undertaker fan, big Undertaker fan till that day. Since that day I seen him, went back and watched a lot of his old matches and loved him then. I have one of his DVDs where it's got all his like best matches on it. It's his matches and promos. It was just really cool. There's like weird interactions. It's really cool. He did with storylines. Uh, One time in the '90s, early 2000s, I want to say it was in the late '90s, he changed his character up a little bit. I believe it was called, he had formed a stable called the Ministry or the Ministry of Darkness. And he would go around doing what he called sacrifices, if I believe it to be correct, if I remember correctly. And he would go around like doing like initiations to get people in his stable, in his faction. He would like cut people. And it was just where I didn't care as much for that character. I had my least favorite of all his characters. I still liked him, but I just didn't care for the character much, even though he still put on good matches. I was glad when that character ended, thank God. I was glad when he ended it. Uh, he eventually came back as the big he ran the yard, uh, the American Bad-A, uh, the Undertaker, and he come out riding this bike like a Harley Davidson, come out wearing a bandana. Uh, his theme music at one time was American Bad-A by Kid Rock when that song first come out. And then he also had the theme music of Rolling by Limp Bizkit at one time. He changed his moveset up a little bit for that character. For his biker gimmick, the same character. He would still do the choke slam and the tombstone at times, but he did like a power bomb called The Last Ride, and I just loved the way he used it. He would like pull on to his opponent's tight before he would slam him down in the power bomb position, extra hard, and pick him up, slam him, drop him down extra high. It was just really cool. Like extra hard, just a lot more force than a regular power bomb. Uh, and he also did this move called the Hell's Gate. It was a you ever see it like a triangle choke where he would choke people out the time with his legs. I just always liked how he done that with that character. Uh, yeah, so I liked his that character as well. Um, the Undertaker just a legend, man. I mean, what can you else can you say? He had the streak where he was won all these matches in the Raw at WrestleMania, and they had a streak in by the hands of Brock Lesnar. I had a feeling Brock was going to beat him just for some weird reason, and couldn't nobody believe it, even the fans watching it live. You know, the fans was all shocked, and people was generally really shocked about that he lost that streak. Hardly nobody really knew. They realized that he was going to lose that streak that night. They talked about it on the documentary on the Last Ride documentary. I thought his match with at WrestleMania with AJ Styles, the Boneyard match, was very good for what it was. I thought Undertaker did awesome to be as old as he is and everything. I thought if that's going to be his last match, he went out great, and I thought it was a legendary way to go out. And he's ultimate legend, one of my favorites of all time, The Undertaker. So I'm going to just read some of the comments real quick to back my opinion up. Um, he's widely regarded as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. He's a seven-time world heavyweight champion in WWF and WWE. Uh, held the WWF, WWE Championship 4 times and a World Heavyweight Championship 3 times. Yep. He also had a tag team with Kane in WWF. That was Brother of Destruction. He was awesome there. He held the WWF and WCW World and the WCW World Tag Team Championships during the Invasion storyline. So yeah, he even did won some tag championships with Kane while he was in WWF. Thought that was awesome. Uh, yeah, so I just always loved Taker. Always been a big fan. And watching his documentary, through all the injuries and everything he suffered, I knew he got hurt a lot, but I didn't know he had that many injuries. It goes into detail about his injuries, and amazing that he's still alive and really just still able to wrestle and be as good as he is. I mean, he's still great. I've just always been a big fan of Undertaker. Always been one of my favorites. Love his character. I like him as a person. After I've seen him on the documentary, I just think he seems like a nice, cool guy, interesting guy. I've just always been a big fan. I mean, he's a living legend. I love Undertaker. It's a great wrestler. Number 6 on my favorite of all time as far as wrestling. Number 6, Undertaker. All right. Now at number 5, we have the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. The Hitman Bret Hart. Um, Bret Hitman Hart is from Canada. He's from a family of legendary wrestlers. His brother was Owen Hart. Owen Hart, to me, is considered a legend in wrestling. A lot of people maybe not a legend, but I think he's one of the greatest of all time. Even though Owen, was very short-lived, his career because he had a tragic accident where he fell from the ceiling one time during the pay-per-view. I'll never forget it. It was horrible. I still think it's probably the worst thing that ever happened in wrestling. Um, it's not the worst thing. It's right on up there. He should have never died. It should have never happened. He should still be alive and probably still wrestling and being great matches. He was going to be better and better, and he was really coming along before he passed. Yes, I just want to say that about Owen. Bret Hart's niece is Natalia, woman wrestler. I love her. WWE, she's a great wrestler, I think, in my opinion, very technical. A lot of people bag on her, but I think she's a very good wrestler. I always think they should push on more opinion than what they give, but how WWE is. Uh, yeah, and also his nephew. Yeah, I believe that's right. His nephew is a wrestler. Bret Hart's nephew is a wrestler named Teddy Hart. Also a very good wrestler. I've watched him on the MLW and on the Indies a lot. Great wrestler. Unfortunately, he gets in and out of trouble a lot and gets kind of blackballed for the industry. A lot of people don't know about him, never seen him wrestle, but a great wrestler, a lot of talent, and I always wished he could get more opportunities, but he messes up a lot. But hopefully he'll get himself straight and get back on TV and wrestling soon. I wish AW would sign him. As a matter of fact, people don't know this, but he was actually in dark in the crowd one time Thought that was funny. Uh, yep. Also, Bret the Hitman Hart is also related to Jim Namath. I think that's his brother or uncle or cousin or something. I believe it's his brother. Natalia's daddy is Amber Neidhart, and British Bulldog. They're all related. I think it's his brother or his cousin too. I believe it's his brother, Bret Hart's brother, British Bulldog. So, yeah, I just always loved the Hart tradition, the family legacy, and all that. But Bret the Hitman Hart, always loved his matches. The way he works, he always took himself really seriously. Sometimes I feel like too seriously. He really believed in his character, in his gimmick. His promos, he believed what he said when he was the best wrestler. He really believed it, and that nobody was better than he was. Uh, yeah, but he had a legendary match with Stone Cold. Actually, I think he had one of Stone Cold's best matches. Stone Cold, he actually busted Stone Cold's head open, and Stone Cold didn't give up, but he passed out in the sharpshooter, and they made a T-shirt out of it. And I had the T-shirt for a long time. One of my all-time favorite shirts. The Austin Preach Team Blood for my Stone shirt, very cool. So he was a legendary match for him. Bret Hart's rivalry with Shawn Michaels was legendary. Them two just hated each other, couldn't stand each other. Both great wrestlers. I liked both of them. Of course, a lot of people know about the Montreal Screwjob. I think Bret Hart was on that. I think it was really his fault, most of it. Vince really had no choice. Bret, screwed himself, in my opinion. Bret was being a jerk and didn't want to give the title up and wanted to just take it anywhere and just thought he was bigger and better than the company and better than anybody else. And he thought he knew everything, and I just didn't think it was right. So I was kind of on Shawn Michaels' side in that whole Shawn Michaels Bret Hart beef. And though I like both of them, I like Bret Hart. I've always liked him. He's a legend and one of the best, greatest of all time. So yeah, I love Bret Hart. Number five, my opinion, the best of all time. Number five, Bret Hart, Bret Hitman Hart. Excellence excellence of education. One of his names. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Bret Hart. Yep, at number five. So, and I'm gonna tell you some of his accomplishments as well. Um, Give me 1 second. He was inducted into the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame in '96 when he was still wrestling. Um, Also, it's weird. Had like a weird kind of career. I don't know what you call it, fall off. Or I really don't know what happened, but when he had the falling out in WWF and the whole blow up with Sean McMahon, the whole fallout from the Montreal Screwjob, when he left WWF, he was basically the face and probably the biggest star in WWF at the time, basically the company. Fans loved him, especially in Canada. People just loved him. But Hart kids loved him. Uh, WCW wanted him and signed him huge money to a huge deal. And, it was a big deal when WCW got him when he jumped ship to WCW. Just a huge deal. I mean, and ever since he got in WCW, it was like, I don't know if they didn't push him right or didn't book him right. I know he had a lot of image, but he just wasn't the same. And they pretty much basically hardly did anything relevant in WCW. To be honest, I don't even remember him being relevant, or I couldn't even tell you anything memorable about him in WCW, in my opinion. Except maybe when he debuted, he come out there and cut a promo, I believe, but it wasn't even that good, and I couldn't even remember to tell you what he said. Couldn't remember to tell you what his promo was. So he just fell off when he went to WCW. I don't know what happened, but yeah. Um, but here's some of his accomplishments. Uh, he held championships in 5 decades from the 70s to the 2010s, with a total of 32 held championships throughout his career and 17 held between WWF and WWE and WCW. Other accolades: he is a 5-time WWF World Heavyweight Champion, a 2-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Hart has the most combined days as WWF World Heavyweight Champion during the 1990s, 654 days, and was the first WCW World Heavyweight Champion born outside the United States. He is the second WWF Triple Crown champion and fifth with Goldberg, WCW Triple Crown champion, and the first man to win both the WWF and WCW Triple Crown championships. Hart is also the 1994 Royal Rumble match winner and the only two-time King of the Ring, winning the 1991 tournament and the first King of the Ring pay-per-view in 1993. Stone Cold, he headlined multiple pay-per-view events as part of an acclaimed rivalry. The one I was telling you about where he busted him open from 96 to 97. He got inducted into the Hall of Fame in WWE in 2006. In 2019, Hart became one of four people to enter the WWE Hall of Fame twice when he was inducted again as a member of the Hart Foundation with brother-in-law Jim Neidhart. I was mentioned before about his Hart Foundation table. So Jim Hart was his brother-in-law. Uh, yep. Yep. So, I mean, he's great, one of the greatest of all time. Bret the Hitman Hart. Number 5 on my list. All right. Now, number 4. I'm going to say the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Another one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, personal favorite wrestlers, and I think one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. A lot of people say he is the greatest in-ring performer, meaning the way he does his moves and his matches that he had in wrestling, through wrestling history in WWE. A lot of people said he never had a bad match. I always said that and thought that. I would say until that one of his last matches when he did that one night comeback. He did one of them Saudi Arabia shows. Him and Triple H, I didn't forget who, but it was like a couple years ago, last year before last, and it was awful. Shawn Michaels even messed up. He got hurt during the match and like messed up on a moonsault, and yeah, it was awful. And he like used to never mess up, Shawn Michaels. So yes, but still one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, probably the greatest wrestling performer of all time. In my opinion, as a wrestler, the way he moved and everything, his promos was good. He could talk, work, uh, tough. Could be a good guy. He could be a bad guy. Fans loved him. People loved to hate him. Women, all the women wanted to be with him. Good-looking guy. Had a lot of women. I mean, he was the total package. Uh, when he first started DX, he was legendary. Him and Triple H did some legendary skits and promos. They did one where they did played strip poker and they did like they was like chefs and they was had tongs and wore the chef outfits and chef hats and they were talking about cooking weenies and just different stuff like that. There's really funny stuff. Uh, yeah, they started telling people, suck it, doing the sign and this hilarious stuff. Shawn Michaels did. I was sad being a kid because when I first got into wrestling, he was on his way out of DX and out of the company, out of wrestling. He had hurt his back and retired after that match with Stone Cold at WrestleMania. So that was the last I got to see him, was that pay-per-view, that match. And so I always loved Shawn Michaels. I was tickled to death when he came back. I had actually quit. Uh, he came back years later, made this huge comeback, surprise comeback, and he wrestled. He was older. He was really good. Just put on great rivalry and great matches. Had that great last match with Ric Flair when he retired Ric Flair at WrestleMania. It's a great legendary match. I love that match. Uh, yeah. He had Shawn Michaels was also known for one of his best matches was many people say it's the greatest wrestling match of all time. Uh, his match with Razor Ramon, I believe, uh, was either one of the WrestleManias, I believe. One of his nicknames, besides the Heartbreak Kid, was they call him Mr. WrestleMania. Um, in WWF and WWE, Michaels headlined pay-per-view events between 1989 and 2018. Closed the company's flagship annual event WrestleMania 5 times, so he headlined WrestleMania 5 times. He was the co-founder and original leader of DX, as I told you earlier. Um, he also wrestled in the AWA, American Wrestling Association. We found the Midnight Rockers. That's where he got his start with Marty Jannetty. They was famous tag team tag team called the Rockers, very good. He started a rivalry with him when he turned on Marty Jannetty and threw him through a window. Uh, yep, like a barber window. Uh, Michaels twice challenged for the WWF Championship and won his first Intercontinental Championship, and that's when he became one of the Rivals' top premier single stars. Um, Shawn Michaels is the four-time world champion, having held the WWF Championship 3 times, the WWE World Heavyweight Championship once. He is also a 2-time Royal Rumble winner and the first man to win the match as the #1 entrant. The first WWF Grand Slam champion and the fourth WWF Triple Crown champion. He was a 2-time WWE Hall of Fame. 2011 as a singles wrestler, 2019 as part of the DX stable. Michaels won the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Match of the Year. Reader vote a record 11 times. His match against John Cena on April 2007 was ranked by WWE as the best ever match aired on the company's flagship Raw program. Um, yep, so that's some of his accomplishments. Um, he's also had like this little side click um, with naturally all like real life best friends, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, X Pac, Six, Sean Morton, whatever you want to call him, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. They're all like best friends with life, Shawn Michaels. And they formed like this little clique called the Clique. They did this skit where I believe it was they left WCW or several of them left for WCW where they pretty much all hugged and embraced each other in front of fans and pretty much, like they kind of exposed the business and it was very controversial at the time in the 90s when they done it because nobody had done nothing like that before. So, yeah, he's also part of the Clique. And that match I was pertaining to, that particular match, a lot of people say some people say it's the greatest in history. Well, a lot of people have over the years. I don't think it's the greatest ever in history, but it was a very good match. Shawn Michaels against Razor Ramon, Scott Hall at WrestleMania X in Madison Square Garden in a ladder match. It was for the Intercontinental Championship. Yep, so that was that match. Um, yep, so that's Shawn Michaels. My opinion, the Heartbreak Kid, #4, greatest wrestler of all time. #4, Shawn Michaels, Heartbreak Kid. Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Woo! Yeah, just kidding. He won't Ric Flair. So #4, Shawn Michaels. All right. Now, for #3 of my list, who I think is the third greatest professional wrestler of all time, uh, Andre the Giant from the French Alps. Andre the Giant was huge, massive, gargantuan. He was a real life giant, huge, just a huge man, uh, athletic for his size, big, strong, could move, could work. I liked him on the mic. I thought he was good at promos. Could be scary looking. Could be nice also. Had a lot of personality, a lot of charisma. I just always liked his matches, loved the way he worked. Of course, by the time I got into wrestling, I think he was already, I believe he might have already died by then, or maybe I'm not really sure, but can't be sure on that. But to me, he's always been a legend, always been one of the best. For a long time, he was undefeated, couldn't nobody beat him. I think his last official match, and I think the only time he lost, may have been the only match he lost, or the very first time he lost a match, was famously, if I'm not mistaken, to Hulk Hogan in the very first WrestleMania. If I'm not mistaken, that's when Hulk Hogan picked up Andre the Giant and slammed him, body slammed him, and did the leg drop on him and beat him 1, 2, 3. Uh, I'm gonna double check that. I'm not 100% sure. Um, and I was wrong about that. I didn't think that sounded right. That matchup was turned to Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan, where Hulk Hogan beat him and pinned him up, body slammed him. That was WrestleMania 3. So yeah, that's the first time I ever saw Andre. First Andre match I ever saw, and that was like his last one. Uh, but yeah, I just always love Andre, and he's a legend and huge. And yeah, recently HBO did like a big documentary on him about Andre the Giant. It was really great. Went into a lot of detail, talked about how he grew up and why he was so big and tall, and how he died and how sad he was when he died, and he was in a lot of pain, and a lot of people just kind of turned their back on him, and I just always liked him, and I felt bad for him in his final years, just the way he had to live, and yeah, I just always liked him, and just an all-time great wrestling legend to me, and I would just always want, I'd love to meet him, and just been around him. He was one of those larger than life characters, larger than life people. I mean, he was just awesome. Just the sight of him was just awesome. Uh, yep. So hang on, I'll read you some of his accomplishments as well. Um, Andre the Giant was he stood over 7 feet tall, and he actually had it's a disorder pretty much born with it called gigantism. You can look it up; it's a real thing. It was caused by excess growth hormone, and later resulted in acromegaly. It also led to him being called. His nickname was the eighth wonder of the world. The eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. He was a fan favorite. Bobby Heenan was his manager at one time, for a long time. Uh, Andre Giant was really big in the 80s. Um, he also did movies as well, Andre the Giant. Princess Bride, good movie. He did another movie I liked called Classic Movie. He also did another movie I liked. It wasn't classic, but it was called, well, it was the last movie before he died. It was called Trading Mom with Sissy Spacek. I always liked that movie as a kid. Loved that movie. Uh, he is described as one of the most recognizable figures in the world, both as a professional wrestler and as a pop culture icon. Uh, yep. In '93, he was when it was still WWE, when it was WWF. Still, he was credited as the inaugural and sole inducted in the class of '93. Uh, I'll read you some of his championships and accomplishments. Uh, 50th State Big Time Wrestling. He won a battle royal there. In All Japan Pro Wrestling, he was the world's strongest uh, tag determination league sport award. Him and Giant Baba. Uh, in Championship Wrestling with Florida, from Florida. NWA Florida Tag Team Championship with Dusty Rhodes. Partners with Dusty Rhodes. They won the title. Uh, he was the Federation French, some kind of French organization, French heavyweight champion there one time. For Houston Wrestling, he was a two-ring battle royal winner in 74 and 75. He worked for International Wrestling Enterprise, NWA World Tag Team Championship one time with Michael Nador, NWA Hollywood, Los Angeles Battle Royal from 75 to 8, and then again in 1980, NWA San Francisco, Cow Palace Battle Royal, 1977. Um, he even worked in New Japan Pro Wrestling at a time in '85, International Wrestling Grand Prix, MSG League, the MS Tag League, the Sangwak Express Cup Grand 18 Club, NWA Tri-State, NWA United States Tag Team Championship. He won the Tri-State version one time with Dusty Rhodes. He's in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum, class of 2002. And Pro Wrestling Illustrated rated him as the most popular wrestler of the year of 1977 and 1982. Match of the year in 81 was Killer Khan on May 2nd. Match of the year in 88, Hulk Hogan main event. Uh, Most hated wrestler of the year in 1988. Editor's Award in 93. Ranked third of the top 500 single wrestlers of the PWI in 2003. He worked in Stampede Wrestling when he was the Wrestling Hall of Fame, class of 95. Uh, Even did like a WCW Australia type of deal where he won a tag title there. He won the WWF Tag Team Championship one time with Haku. WWF World Heavyweight Championship one time. Had a WWE Bronze statue in 2013. WWF Hall of Fame class of 93. Wrestle Observer Newsletter Feud of the Year for 81 for Killer Khan. Most embarrassing wrestler, 1989. Worst feud of the year, 84 versus John Studd. Worst feud of the year, 89. Ultimate Warrior. Worst working match of the year, 87. Worst worked match of the year, 89 versus Ultimate Warrior. Worst tag team, 1990 and 91. Worst wrestler, 1989, 91, 92. Wrestling Newsletter Hall of Fame class of 96. He's also in the Canadian Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2016. I don't believe all those wrestlers about him being the worst wrestler. It's hard to believe, in my opinion. But yes, one of the best wrestlers of all time, and in my opinion, on my list, he's the number 3 greatest wrestler of all time, Andre the Giant. Now, before I give you the last 2 of my list, with possibly the 2 greatest wrestlers of all time, in my opinion, I'm gonna just have a couple honorable mentions that didn't make the list, and I'll tell you why. The first is Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, of course, is a legendary pro wrestler. He's also a pop culture icon. Just a very popular person in general. Just about everybody in the grandma knows who Hulk Hogan is. God, I mean, he's been around forever. He was around since I was a kid. Before I even got into wrestling, I knew who Hulk Hogan was. I mean, he's just somebody everybody knew. He's an actor, television personality, entrepreneur, musician. According to IGN, Hogan is the most recognized wrestling star worldwide and the most popular wrestler of the 1980s. He was huge in the 80s. His character in the 80s was the Hulkster. He would call his fans Hulkamaniacs. Uh, Hulk Hogan. He was just a part of so many big matches and so many big matches, so many legendary feuds and storylines in wrestling. That's why I had to mention him. I couldn't do a list about him, at least mention him. I mean, uh, he's even outside of wrestling, had his own reality show that was good. Hogan Knows Best. Um, he's did movies outside of wrestling. Uh, he's done movies. He did several movies when I was a kid that I always liked. Suburban Commando and Mr. Nanny, and I liked him in No Holds Barred. That year he did a SummerSlam match with Tiny Zeus Lister Jr. Debo from Friday movies. They did a match. They did the movie together. They did a match to hype up the movie. Go along with them, they did an actual match SummerSlam in the 90s. I always thought that was cool. Uh, yes, but anyway, Hulk Hogan, legendary. He was one of those when he finished in WWF, shipped over to WCW, and he was huge in WWF. for a long time. When he jumped over to WCW, everybody was all excited. They had him as a baby face, and the Hulk Hogan, by some reason, his Hulk Hogan character, for whatever reason, the Hulkamania character, Hulk Hogan character, the Hulk the character, just didn't translate well in WCW. It just kind of died. The promo was very cheesy and lame and just corny and just didn't get over well for anybody. He became just kind of stale and boring to people. Um, so he uh, turned heel and he started the NWO, which is a famous wrestling stable, famous wrestling team, faction, stable, group, whatever you want to call it, the New World Order. Him, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash came up from WWF, made the jump over as the Outsiders. Uh, they surprised everybody, shot their body, showed up on WCW Nitro. And they was doing a storyline who was the fifth man in NWO, and it actually turned to be Eric Bischoff. So Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, uh, Scott Hall, and Hollywood Hulk Hogan is what he's going by now. He would wear like his Hollywood shirt, and his pants would have like Hollywood symbols on them. And he went by Hollywood Hulk, and he would take his shirt off and wear like muscle shirts and have a black bandana. Said, "I'm Hollywood Hulk Hogan, yeah, brother." And that was just kind of his deal. And he was a heel character, and uh, they would come out in NWO and they would just attack people for no reason and beat up little cruiserweights. And I remember one time on Nitro, they took Rey Mysterio and threw him like a lawn dart through like a building or something. It was crazy. But yeah. And they would brand people like with spray paint says write NWO on it. Uh, yeah, to let them know they marked NWO, and they this was part of legendary feuds and everything. And over time, his Hollywood hooker character got ridiculous and stale, and the NWO angle really got ridiculous and stale. That was one of the downfalls, in my opinion, of WCW. That's really all Eric Bischoff did was create NWO, and they started adding spin-offs of it and different groups like the LWO, Eddie Guerrero's Lucas Stable, the NWO Wolfpack. Kevin Nash left and started the Wolfpack with they had Sting and Lex Luger and Conan and uh, the original NWO. Eric Bischoff started just hiring everybody and adding them to the group. Scott Norton, it just like seemed like, oh my God, everybody was joining NWO in black and white, and it was dumb by that point. But they sold a lot of shirts, and his Hulkamania, his Hollywood Hooker character was just huge. Uh, Eventually, when WCW folded, he went to years later. He went to TNA, which was Jeff Jarrett's promotion. He started. It was like a spinoff of WCW, which is also now Impact. Never didn't like watched it. Never watched it when it was TNA. Barely watched it when it's Impact. I've always never liked TNA. Never liked Impact. Just horrible. Hated the concept of it. I just hated it. Even though they had some good wrestlers over the years. They were booking. I think Hulk Hogan did a lot of booking. Just terrible. Just uh, so Hulk Hogan was never been one of my favorites, but he's a great wrestler and a legend and living legend and one of the greatest of all time. Uh, he just had so many memorable feuds and matches with people. It's just hard to not mention him. You can't deny it. He's one of the greatest of all time, and he's sold a lot of merchandise and toys, and just he's just a legend, an icon. Hulk Hogan. Uh, yeah. So what you gonna do when Hulk Hogan runs wild on you? Uh, yeah. So I'll give you some of his accomplishments very quickly. Um, hmm, uh, for New Japan Pro Wrestling, he was the IWGP Heavyweight Championship once. I didn't know that. IWGP League Tournament, he won that, 1983. MSG Tag League Tournament, 1982 and 1983 with Antonio Inoki. He was actually covered on that wrestler show back on Vice. It was a very good episode. He's a deathmatch wrestler. Very cool little episode. You should check that out. Great show if you could ever get a chance to watch it. Very cool, in my opinion. I loved it. Uh, it's in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in the museum in '03. Uh, PWE gave him a bunch of awards. Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Uh, in Southern Championship Wrestling, he was NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion once, NWA Southeastern Heavyweight Champion division 2 times. Tokyo Sports, he won a bunch of some awards. WCW, he was the WCW World Heavyweight Championship 6 times. Uh, WWF and WWE, and actually later on in WWE, he even brought back the Hulkster character and done pretty good there to be as old as he was over with the crowd. Yeah, so that was cool. And he even brought back the NWO for a short time, and I liked that. He had a legendary match at WrestleMania with The Rock as the Hollywood Hulk Hogan character. Wasn't a great match, but it was just cool to see him in there with him. Uh, yep. So in WWF and WWE, he won the WWF and WWE Undisputed World Heavyweight Championship 6 times, like I said. The WWE Tag Team Championship 1 time with Edge. Uh, that's hard to believe. Wow. The Royal Rumble 1990 and 1991, he won both of those. He's been in the WWE Hall of Fame twice. Class of '05 by himself. Class of 2020 as a member of the New World Order, NWO. Yep. So one of the greatest of all time. Legend, the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan. Yep. Also, another quick honorable mention. Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh, yeah. Number 2, a Slim Jim, brother. Funny enough, he was also think he's one of the best of all time. Never been one of my personal favorites, but you can't deny he's one of the best of all time. I just didn't care for his matches much. I honestly, believe it or not, found out about him by the time he jumped over to WCW from WWF. He was a big star in WWF, and he still was when he was in WCW. He had a big deal with Slim Jim, and he started doing a Slim Jim commercial, and that's actually how I first noticed him was from the Slim Jim commercials. Uh, yeah, but he's a great wrestler, and had a lot of legendary feuds, was in some legendary matches over his career. Great wrestling, did some good promos. Uh, I loved his manager at the time, and he was also a couple, in real life. Can't remember if they were married or not. I can't remember, but they did a Dark Side episode of them as a couple. It had a rough time as a couple, but I always liked her. Miss Elizabeth was her name. She was beautiful, and wow, she's amazing. But yeah, that's Macho Man Randy Savage. So he gets another honorable mention. Didn't make my list, but he still gets an honorable mention. And you could also throw The Rock in there, and Stone Cold, and a luchador I discovered recently of Hayabusa. He's a great Mexican wrestler. You could also add them in as honorable mentions as well. Um, so I'm not going to try to make this too much long. I know I've just kind of been rambling, but I've been trying to get all my facts and everything straight. Uh, Now, for my final 2 of my list, the top 2. Number 2, greatest wrestler of all time, Harley Race. Um, Harley Race was a big rival of Ric Flair. They had some legendary matches. Um, uh, Harley Race wrestled in the NWA, the AWA, WWF, WCW. He was an 8-time world champion, having won the WWA World Heavyweight Championship and the NWA World Heavyweight Championship 7 times, and was the first NWA United States Heavyweight Champion. Uh, Harley Race is one of 6 men to have been inducted to each of the WWE Hall of Fame, the NWA Hall of Fame, WCW Hall of Fame, and the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, and the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame. Yep. Uh, so Harley Race, good wrestler from what I've seen. A lot of people say he's one of the greatest of all time. His feud with uh, Flair's feud with Ric Flair and rivals Ric Flair was legendary. I think he was a heel wrestler a lot, but he was a great heel, and stuff I've seen in promos was excellent, and his matches was good. Uh, so just based on what I've seen and read and heard, my opinion is number 2 of all time, number 2 greatest wrestler of all time. So Harley Race. Uh, Now for my number 1 greatest wrestler of all time, uh, in my opinion, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Woo! To be the man, you gotta beat the man. Uh, yep, so Nature Boy. Uh, Ric Flair. He is the kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, jet flying, son of a gun. I mean, he said that and he done all that. And he had all the women, the limousines, special robes, big house. Uh, Ric Flair, I've been watching the wrestling as long as I've been alive, as long as I was a wrestling fan. I actually didn't get to see him until he was in WCW. He had jumped ship there, and he was great there also. You know, he's older, he's still putting on great matches. Um, as I said before earlier, he had that great last match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. Um, Ric Flair is also an icon. He actually popularized a phrase called "Woo!" athletes, and everybody say it all over the world. It's from Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, he has a daughter in WWE, Charlotte. I've been a fan of her since she was in NXT. Always loved her. I think she's my favorite woman. She's my favorite woman wrestler. In my opinion, she might go down as the greatest woman wrestler of all time. Still got a long ways to go. I love her. But back to Ric Flair, I mean, he was amazing. His promos were great. His matches were great. He had classic matches, classic rivalries, classic feuds and rivalries and matches with Ricky Steamboat. Uh, he wrestled all over the place, man. Ric Flair, he would wrestle sometimes 2 times in one night. He would fly from one place and then fly to another in the same night and wrestle multiple times for multiple companies. Held a bunch of different titles. He even wrestled in TNA after he left WWE. Uh, he even wrestled on the Indies years afterwards when he probably shouldn't have. He was very old. He still wrestled anyway, just because he loved it so much. Uh, his promos were great. He would wear suits and trash other wrestlers and uh, talk about sleeping with other people's wives and just hilarious stuff like that. He started a stable, a group, a faction, probably the most famous of all time, even definitely one of the most famous of all time. The Four Horsemen, him, Ole Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Arn Anderson. They were the Four Horsemen, the original Four Horsemen, and just a great faction. My uncle, who got me into wrestling, has all his DVDs and showed me DVDs of interviews. He would rent out like whole hotels and throw parties, and he would go out and party all night afterwards and still wrestle. And he said he would never show up hungover. He would always work hard and do his job, and always uh, gave 100% everything he did. And outside of wrestling, they say he's a really great guy and a really nice guy. Just always liked him, loved his promos. I mean, he's a legend. Uh, he would do a skit. I mean, not a skit, but do this thing like he does a strut, and he'd tap a couple times and go woo, and that's one of his favorite things that he does. I always liked it. Funny little side note: a cousin of mine and my dad was going to a had went to a United uh, UVA University of Virginia college football game. They're big UVA fans. Why I don't know. I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, but never been a UVA fan. But nonetheless, it's where I'm from, UVA. They had been to a UVA game, and I believe it said they was in Charlottesville. I believe they was on their way back. They had stopped at a store to get some drinks or cigarettes or something, and my cousin had went in to get cigarettes, I believe. And my cousin is a bigger husky set guy, great guy. Everybody loves him. They call him Mo. Name's Mark. Uh, Big, huge guy. I mean, big sweetheart. Great guy. Just love him to death. Uh, just a great time. Big party guy. Just hilarious. He's fun to be around. Anyway, this huge guy. He's couldn't guess his height, but he won't. Just a big, strong, huge guy. If you get him mad, if he wants to get to fighting with him, if he got his hand on you, it's fool. I mean, he's just a beast. Uh, but he had went to the store, went through the store and was getting something, and he wasn't paying attention. He just kind of stumbled a little bit, and he stumbled up against somebody, and the guy he bumped into and almost knocked him down was Ric Flair. He said, "Oh my God, it's Ric Flair." He said, "I almost knocked you down. I'm sorry." Ric Flair said, "I said, oh, don't worry about it." And, my dad said, he said, Ric Flair's brother said, "I hope you're doing well or something." Ric Flair's walking out. My dad said, he looked at Ric Flair and said, "Hey, Rick, give me a strut one more time." He said, Ric Flair turned around and did the strut and the woo. And he had went in and bought a Coke and waved at the guy at the register. And the guy just said, kind of waved down and said, "Okay." And Ric Flair didn't have to pay and just drove off. And I believe my dad said a blonde was with him in the car driving at the time, but that was actually probably Charlotte. So I just thought this was a little cool little story. But wish you could have been there to see that. I wish I could have met Ric Flair. I mean, that'd been amazing. But yes, I'll read these Ric Flair's accomplishments very quickly. All right. Um, Ric Flair is in the George Tragos Lou Fest Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, class of 2013. Uh, Ric Flair in his early days was very popular when he wrestled for Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling and Jim Crockett Promotions in WCW. Uh, he was a WCW World Heavyweight Champion 6 times, WCW Intercontinental World Heavyweight Champion 2 times. I'm sorry, WWE International World Heavyweight Champion 2 times, WCW. NWA Mid Atlantic Heavyweight Championship 3 times, NWA Mid Atlantic NWA Television Championship twice, NWA Mid Atlantic WCW United States Heavyweight Championship 6 times, NWA Mid Atlantic Tag Team Championship 3 times, with Rip Hawk, Greg Valentine, and Big John Studd. NWA World Tag Team Championship, Mid Atlantic 3 times with Greg Valentine, Blackjack Mulligan, first WCW Triple Crown Champion. In the NWA, he was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion 9 times, NWA Hall of Fame in the class of '08. Uh, won several awards for Match of the Year and Feud of the Year for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Um, he's in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame Museum class of '06. St. Louis Wrestling Club Heavyweight Champion 1 time. St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame class '07. For WWF and WWE, he's a World Tag Team Champion 3 times with Batista twice and Roddy Piper. Uh, WWE Intercontinental Champion 1 time. WWF World Heavyweight Champion twice. Royal Rumble, he won that in '92. 32 Triple Crown Champion. Slam match for 2008, the Shawn Michaels WrestleMania match I told you about. He won that award. He's in WWE Hall of Fame twice. Class in '08 by himself for WWE. Class 2012 as a member of the Four Horsemen. He also has a WWE bronze statue in 2017. He won several awards for Wrestling Observer. He had some legendary matches and feuds with Ricky Steamboat. They would have Iron Man matches and wrestle for like an hour and 30-minute match, it seems like. I mean, night in and night out, sometimes like, 2 nights in a row, 3 nights in a row, they'd wrestle, 30, 45 minutes or an hour, sometimes an hour-long matches and just put on great matches from what I've heard and seen. Even in his later years, Ric Flair and WWE formed a faction with Triple H. They was called Evolution, and in that faction was um, Triple H, a guy by the name of who went on to become Randy Orton, and a guy became Batista, and all of them together they formed a faction called Evolution. They played heels, and they would cheat, and that they really helped to bring out Randy Orton's character. Randy Orton really got his start, and that's where he got his start and got really good. He had the Legend Killer, and his career just really took off. And Randy Orton has been great, and he's also one of the greatest of all time. You can put the name to list him, but he's still wrestling. He's one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion, even though I didn't put him in my top 10. And Batista, was probably at one time. I'm not a big Batista fan, never have been. Never cared for his matches, didn't even like his promos. I just never been a Batista fan, but he was popular at one time. And yeah, so Ric Flair helped create Evolution, which is another huge thing he did for wrestling. It was really big for wrestling in the 2000s and all. For WWE's last big boom here lately. I mean, over the last, 10, 20 years or so, she helped with Evolution. So that's another thing Ric Flair did. Yep. So anyway, that's been my top 10 list of who I think is the best professional wrestlers of all time. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you all could understand what I was saying. I had a lot to read. Sorry for the pauses when my speaking. I was trying to make sure I had all my facts and everything right and all that. So I hope you guys liked it. I hope this video wasn't too long for y'all. And I'm going to try to make an AEW Dynamite review. Probably do it tomorrow. And after I watch NXT. Some of it's gonna be coming in the next couple of days. So I hope you guys liked this video and enjoyed it. I'm gonna try to do a couple list of soon of sometime maybe the top 10 worst wrestlers of all time. We'll think of the worst wrestlers and top 10 of my personal favorites, and maybe top 10 of who are my least favorites, and maybe even break it down to top tag teams and top factions. So, yeah, I'm probably going to do that too. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. Hope everybody's doing good and staying safe. Happy wrestling. See you.